Well, here we are. It is Friday, August 8th, 2025, and this is the weekly video. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. There was an interesting week in the Asian art market, and it was a very interesting week as far as American furniture and European furniture goes, and some very encouraging results. This is something we've talked about for the last couple of months, that there seems to be some interest coming back into the broader antique market. And some prices this week that we saw at Stair Gallery and a few other places seem to back that up. And I think things are turning around for those of you that are out there that are general antique dealers that have had sort of a slow go of it. It seems like there's some money coming back into it, and it seems like there's some money coming into Japanese things. And we're going to talk a little bit about I'm going to just touch on it at the end. But Leland Little's got a sale coming up. A lot of Japanese material, but some exceptional pieces. One piece in particular, if you're a Japanese bronze collector, stick around. We're going to do a full video on it probably Monday or Tuesday and go through the sale. But it looks like an interesting bunch of stuff, and we'll talk about that. A couple of things happened this week I want to talk about. One of them was this. We had a lot of inquiries about this. I had placed a bid on it as a lawn ornament because it isn't old, but it looked old, and I noticed at the end it seemed to get not that many bidders, so I think everybody was onto it. But a number of people have sent me inquiries this week about this bronze, wondering if it was authentic or not, because the auction company, this was at Neal's down in New Orleans. To their credit, they didn't say it was old. They just said Chinese partial gilt bronze figure of Guandi, and that's exactly what it was. But it's a 20th century bronze, and it's very well done. It's one of the best copies I've ever seen. Actually, it's really well done. And those of you that are looking at it saying, well, how do you tell that's not old? Because it had a lot of elements to it, the surface, where the gilding was worn. And this is really illustrating how good the Chinese forgers are getting at making modern reproductions. This is a very convincing looking bronze. And 30 years ago, this would have absolutely sold as an old piece. It would have sold as a late Ming example or possibly early Qing. It is very well cast, beautifully patinated, nicely detailed, has all the bells and whistles, but certain aspects of it didn't hold up, and one of them was the bottom. And when you look at the bottom of this, you look at it and you say, okay, you got these vajras on the bottom, which you don't typically see with Guandi figures. They typically show up on Buddhas and Buddhist symbols, but it's not done properly. And if you look up around here, you'll see these little tiny cuts that they put on the bottoms of these bronzes. And these were originally put on the old ones during the Ming and early Qing dynasty. They would cut into the base and then bend that metal out, and it was done to hold the base plate on. All right, and these little flanged edges down here, you can see one. There's one over here. They would come well out over and cover the plate, so it would hold it in place. And if you look at this one very carefully, you'll notice that some of them were just cut and never bent. They were never bent into place, so they didn't serve any purpose. So why don't they serve any purpose? I suspect because the base plate is probably glued in or using some sort of adhesive or some other method to hold it in, but it's not a traditional method. And the other aspects of is that there is no rubbing anywhere on this. You see wear to the gilding, but on the bronze surface itself, you don't see any signs of any sort of rubbing or abrasion. The gilding is just off the bronze and the surface of the bronze. And up here on the head, you notice that it's very, very smooth and shiny. All right, it shouldn't be. If it was gilded, it would have the same texture as his belly. All right, so the head area was polished when it was done. Now, I was interested in it because it was big. It was 19 inches tall, and I thought I threw a bid on it of, I think, just $200, because the shipping on it was fairly high. It was several $100s to ship it due to the weight. It is 19 inches. It is made of bronze. And but I was going to put it in my garden, to be perfectly honest. But any rate, the $200 was all I was going to put on it, and somebody bought it for $450 plus the premium. It's not an unreasonable number. And of course, if it were authentic, this bronze would have been worth probably in that size, probably worth 20 or 30,000 anyway, maybe more. And that's why it brought what it brought. So the crowd, the bidders obviously spotted it, but those of you that were wondering about this, that had seen it, that's the reason. Okay, so it's a quick thing. The bronzes they're reproducing in China today are getting incredibly good, and there are a number of places I've heard about that are casting reproducing Tibetan bronzes and Nepalese bronzes, and they are turning up all over Europe. And if you look at, there are some certain auction houses that I'm not going to name because it ends up me getting cease and desist orders, but we know who we're talking about. There have been more than a few stories floating around that those bronzes in these places are turning up in auction houses in Austria, Switzerland, these places, France, in droves. And if you look at the auctions, you can spot them because they seem to have a never-ending supply of bronzes. They just always have bronzes by the dozen. All right. And when you look at the major auction houses, they're not getting them. Why? Because they know they're fakes. All right. So the big auction houses, Christie's, Sotheby's, Bonhams, they're not getting them. So why is there this flood of what looked to be very good early bronzes pouring into mid-range auction houses and auction houses with, I'll say, just questionable ethics? All right. And this is why, because they are modern. And I've heard this from a number of people. This isn't something I'm hearing from one person. There's somebody that I spoke with in Asia that is pretty familiar with that whole market, and is active, and a very active bronze buyer himself. And he was going into some detail about the shenanigans that are going on with contemporary bronzes being shipped. So now it's not just porcelains and paintings you have to worry about. Now it's bronzes by the drove, bronzes and bronzes and bronzes. So just be extremely careful going forward. If you see a bronze that looks too good to be true and the estimate is too low to be true, it probably isn't true. Okay, there are very few instances today where these turn up in the market and are, are mistakes, so to speak. You may remember a few months ago there were a number of bronzes that were in a major sale, and they all passed, and that was because they were suspect bronzes, justifiably so. So, at any rate, so that's the story with that. That's sort of this week's story. And now over to this. These dragon plates. I've had some inquiries about these ladies. These were at Clar's out west, and these are these blue and white dragon plates with Daoguan marks, Guangzhou marks on them, rather. Excuse me, and Daoguan marks too. These are reproductions. These are not antique. These are turning up. These are later copies. Some of them are Republic period. This is probably a Republic period set, but they're being peddled in many sales as being market period. I had an inquiry about them yesterday. I've had other inquiries about these kinds of plates. Be very, very suspicious of them, and a lot of them are fairly modern. Much more modern than you would think, even with the Red Seal export stamp on it. That don't go by that. All right. Just so you know, all right. And these were spotted as copies, obviously, because they didn't bring anything. They were estimated at 12 to 1800. They brought 600, all right. And they did not. Now, did they say that they were market period? I don't think they did. Exterior dragon says Dark Guangzhou is a seal mark. No, okay. Now Clar's didn't say that they were market period. Good for them. They just said they have the mark on them. And whenever you see a porcelain in the auction house, just says it bears the mark of Qinlong, bears the mark of Guangzhou, Daoguan, Chaiqing, whoever. If it just says it has the mark, it means they have very low confidence that it's from the period. All right. It doesn't mean that they're saying it's of the period. They're just telling you what's there. And they're basically saying, we're not sticking our necks out for this. All right. They're willing to sell it. Because obviously they make money on it. But they had estimated rather aggressively, despite their doubts about it, at 12 to 1800. But if these had been authentic, they would have brought 3,000 a piece, somewhere around there. They would have brought, as a pair, they would have brought roughly 10 times what they ended up selling for. But be careful. There are a lot of these Daoguan and Guangzhou reproductions out there that were done during the Republic period or later that they're now being passed off as period. So be very, very careful. All right. Now over to this. This was also at Clar's. Now this was very nice, and I think somebody got a heck of a buy. If anybody did any research on this, they would have looked it up and found that there's a virtually identical example in the Korean Museum. And this was an authentic piece, and I was kind of surprised that it didn't pick up more lookers and so forth. And it may be because Clar's does have a reputation for selling things like the previous thing. So if you don't have a squeaky clean reputation on not allowing reproductions and are not stating clearly the age of things all the time, you're going to have doubts with your customers. And I think because of that, somebody got this for a very, very, very small amount of money. This should have brought $5,000 to $7,000. And I think it's because of the company it has out there that they're not known for being especially reliable on their dating. It's as simple as that. And this was a very, very good example. As I said, there's a nearly identical set in the Korean National Museum collection. You can go look it up yourself. If you just throw this in Google Lens, you'll find it. And it's a heck of a thing. It had the right paperwork on it. The papers on it indicate that it was inspected in Korea by the government and authenticated. It's not like the stuff you see coming out of Hong Kong on pieces, certificates of authenticity. That's not what it is in Korea. This is a government agency specifically involved with authenticating and dating things. And they gave it their seal, and it's in the historically, it's been quite reliable. So somebody got a hell of a buy. Somebody got a really great buy. There are only 16 people watching it. And the underglazed red brush spot didn't sell at all, which surprised me very, very much. So I think it's absolutely authentic. And if you're interested in buying it, go back, maybe contact Clark's and see if they'll sell it for, it had some damage to it, but it was a very rare type of Korean porcelain. It was Joseon period, probably late 18th or early 19th century, judging by the characteristics of it. You could maybe get it. Because I don't know if they want to run it through the cow again, so to speak. So it's worth considering anyway. It's worth considering. All right, but this was a great thing. This was a really nice thing. And then there was this sold. Now, this was at Able Auctions out in L.A., and it had a lot of interest. This had 59 people on it. And this is a Japanese 4-panel screen. I don't know if they even dated it. No, they didn't. This was an Edo period, these silvered screens, and this was a small one. It wasn't terribly. It wasn't one of these 6-7 footers. This screen was only about 4 feet tall with I think the 18-inch panels on it. But this is a very desirable type. This is a really nice screen. It's got a great aesthetic to it, probably done during the 18th century. It looked like it had been remounted, which is not uncommon with these old screens. They often are remounted. If you look at the paper on the back, it's a Meiji period paper, but this is not a Meiji period screen. That's a later backing. Okay, that's how they remount them. But the screen itself is done with these silvered squares. They also used gold squares, but the silvered ones, I think, are particularly attractive when they do them with autumn scenes like this, where you have the red maple leaves and so forth. I thought this was a wonderful screen. And it ended up doing fine in the end. It went well over the estimate. It was estimated at $400 to $600, ended up selling for $1,400 plus the premium, so around $2,000 for it. And then, of course, there's a shipping, but it will fold up. You can always get it folded. And I don't think the shipping on this would be too bad. It measures, what was it? It was 42, each panel is, 42 inches tall, 18 inches wide. So 3.5 feet tall and 18 inches in width. So it was a nice tabletop screen. It looked great hanging on a wall. This was an excellent thing to buy. This really was. We had it on the global pages. I hope one of you bought it. This was a beautiful, beautiful piece. Absolutely great. And then hopping along over to this, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, this very nice Chinese, they called it Chinese export. It really was. It was a 19th century cloisonne planter. There's Buck. Hi, Buck. What you doing, buddy? Oh, he's got a chew stick. He's very excited about those. It was 15 inches tall and 17 inches wide. This was a nice big one. I threw a bid on it of about $1,400, and I didn't think I would get it, and I didn't. I was looking for something to put some plants in around my house. I thought this was awfully nice, beautifully done, very high quality, 19th century. They have it dated. There's a label on the inside that said it was Dao Guan. I'm not sure of that. I'm not sure that it was, but you can't say definitively that it wasn't either. But I suspect it was made maybe a little later, but very good quality, beautiful quality. In the end, it did great. It ended up selling for about $5,400, including the premium, because the colors were so good. I just thought it was a wonderful thing. And the estimate was awfully low, $300 to $600 for a big piece like that, in those colors, of that age, in that quality. Quality, as they say. All right, now hopping along over to this. This was one of the bargains of the week. was this very nice Chinese hardwood three-section pedestal desk. It was a 19th century Chinese piece. This was at Neil's. And again, it's probably the shipping that holds these back. So if you live near these auction houses where they're selling furniture and you see something you like, you're at an enormous advantage over somebody who's going to have to get it shipped. Because getting this shipped would probably be $1,000 or $1,500 anywhere in the United States. But if you're nearby, you swing by with your beach wagon or your SUV or whatever you've got, borrow a buddy's pickup truck, rent a truck for the day for $50 and go get it, because this comes apart. This comes apart into three sections. You got the two bases, and you got the top. It'll all fit in. Most of this would fit inside of a decent-sized car. And then you just have to get the brasses for it. But this was a wonderful example, a nice 19th century desk. And as you may recall, it had a big price on it originally. $18,500 was the price that was being asked for it by the previous dealer. It'll show you what kind of markup some dealers are hoping for these days, or at some point. But at any rate, I don't think it was worth $18,000, but I think it was worth $3,000 to $4,000, up in that range. Absolutely, this is a beautiful piece of furniture, and all it needed was now it needs about $200 worth of hardware, which you can pick up without too much trouble on the internet these days, for sure. You just have to measure the width of the holes and go looking, and you'll find them. All right, so whoever got it, bravo, because they ended up with it for about $600, including the buyer's premium. All right, and then over here to this was the stair gallery sale that took place the last couple of days. This was on the 7th. This finished yesterday. And I'm showing this only for one reason. Canterbury's are sort of one of the canaries in the coal mine as far as the furniture market goes. When Canterbury's were in the 1980s and 90s, Canterbury's was selling for very, very strong amounts of money. We had a friend out in California who was a big dealer out there, and he worked with Ed Hardy and all really the finest dealers in California. And he was always looking for Canterbury's because the decorators and interior design people were crazy for them. They're nice pieces of furniture. You can put them in anywhere. They're usually sort of nice looking, and they're handy because you can put this next to a wing chair. You put a bunch of books and magazines in it. We have one in our own house. They are useful. They have a drawer for putting playing cards in, or notepads or whatever for games, cribbage boards. And during the 90s and 80s, these were selling for a lot of money. And suddenly they went off a cliff in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they were selling for, the estimate here was just $400 to $600. Even that was a reach. All right, this is a nice English one from what I'm seeing. And look at the price it brought. Okay, and this is at Stair. All right, it went for $1,600 plus the premium, or around $2,300 or so dollars, because Stair has a fairly heavy buyer's premium, 36%. Yikes. You got to keep that in mind when you bid with them. I think you get a little bit of a discount if you bid on their own site, but that's a pretty stiff buyer's premium. But Stair Gallery's audience is the sort of upper end buyers of antiques. This is who they cater to. This is their market. That's why you always see such good prices there. So you watch places like Stair Gallery and Leland Little and Bronx, the higher end places, the places that Grogan's in Boston is one. They handle high end stuff. They have a good customer base. They're right on Beacon Hill. They get good things. I bought from them. They were a good company. And then you have down in Connecticut, you have a New England Gallery with Fred Giampetro. Up in New Hampshire, you've got Devin Moisen, who's got tied into a very, very good market, or well, there's a bunch of them. Anyway, there's certain ones that are sort of bellwethers in the collector and in dealer community, and Stair Gallery is definitely one of them. So when you start to see price movements here, expect a ripple effect across other auction houses in other parts of the country that don't have their influence or their audience, because who your audience is plays a huge impact on what you get for prices. And very often you can get some very, very good deals on rare things from auction houses that just don't have the clientele that other auction houses do. It's as simple as that. It's why many people, you'll hear stories about somebody getting an absolutely amazing buy in the Midwest in some small auction house that doesn't have great advertising because they don't have the audience. All right, and this is a case, just such a case. So now we're seeing good prices with things like Canterbury's. And this is a very fine one. It's a 19th century one. It's done in that Indian wood. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but you see it on Indian furniture all the time, and a lot of it was imported into England. It's not really a rosewood. It's a variety of a rosewood, but there's a name for this specific wood, and it just completely slips my mind right now with these black and light areas. But it's very attractive. Anyway, that's just a little side note. And we saw it again on this. This was a very nice George III mahogany inlaid writing table with a bunch of drawers on it. Very beautiful table. It was about 6 feet long, so it was a great size, 3 feet in width, 28 inches tall. These beautiful handles on the ends, and it opens up. It's got a drawer on one end. It's got this sort of an easel on the other if you wanted to paint or something. There you have it right there. This was a very attractive table. Here's an end shot of it. This is looking down the length of it to give you a sense of perspective. Beautiful piece of furniture, 19th century, probably 1830s or 40s. It was estimated at just $2,000 to $3,000, and it went for, with the premium, it went for $10,500. That's a big spread. That's a big spread, and that's not the kind of price you've seen much of lately in the American furniture, the English furniture, the French furniture market. And these are the kinds of things that I've been looking at for the last few weeks. And we saw sort of a similar thing with this. Now, this table sold for $3,500, and it had a lot of restoration to it. They had a reinforcement underneath it, underneath the top. And it's still, and they gave it a modest estimate, $8,000 to $1,200. This was also an 1820s table. These beautiful gadrooned legs, nice ball and claw feet on the bottoms, English, well carved, well done. And underneath, you can, when they flip it, it's a concertina table. It's got a hinge on the bottom. There it is. You see this area here. This is a hinge that opens up so you could pull that whole section. Instead of having a gate leg, both legs pull out on these hinges and extend the area. But notice this board underneath. This is a board that was added during some sort of restoration process to reinforce the strength of the table. All right, and with that, and that's usually not a good sign as far as price goes. It doesn't hurt the table at all. It's still the same table, just has a little help underneath. Went for $3,500 plus the premium, or around 40. What does it come out to? About $4,400 for that table, and that's a strong price. It's a very strong price. And then also other things that were in the sale. I believe this was its there. Yeah, it was this great big yellow jar, first half to mid 19th century. It was quite large. It was 30 inches tall, I believe, something like that, wasn't it? I'm going to double check. 28 inches tall, okay, almost 30 inches. This was a very, very pretty famille rose jar. I thought it was lovely. The details were excellent. The shading of the rose enamels on these flowers here is very good. The birds are very finely detailed because these came in such a wide range of qualities. The masks, the lion masks, were nicely done all the way around. It had its original lid. This was a heck of a nice pot. And they gave it a very modest estimate, I think, or a fairly modest one, $700 to $900, which was sort of a no-brainer. You knew it was going to get there. And it had 21 bidders on here, but it probably had more on live auction, on Invaluable and other platforms, and probably on their own platform. At any rate, it sold for $1,600 plus premium, or around $2,200 or so. A good price for that. But it was a beautiful piece of porcelain for 19th century. Very, very attractive. And then this was shocking to me. This was my shock of the week. And I have no idea why these brought this price. I have none at all. These are celadon ground lotus leaf bowls, 7 inches diameter. There's nothing exceptional about them. We've seen these before many times turning up in auctions. If you've been a dealer for any length of time, you've seen these over and over and over again. And what do they sell for typically? They typically sell a pair of these, even in perfect condition, typically sell for anywhere from as low as $200 or $300, and maybe as high as $500 for the pair. Something like that. That's sort of like the ceiling for these, maybe $550 on a really, 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 really good day. And for the life of me, I don't know what happened, but these ended up selling for, with the premium, over $2,000, $1,000 a piece for these. It's a total, if somebody knows the story, why they brought this much, maybe you went to the sale, please email me or leave a comment below on the video here, because I'd love to see what happened there. All right, it's just astonishing. All right, and then along over to this, the Judgment of Paris plate. This was a nice one. We talked about it last week because I thought the coloring was quite good. The shading of the skies was well done. There was that little patch of wear up here in the corner, but these Judgment of Paris plates that were done in the 18th century came in a variety of types and styles and forms. Like I said, there are people who collect these, and they want all the different varieties. You could find them in grisaille, you could find them in famille rose with different backgrounds and so forth. This one was quite well detailed, and with the premium, it ended up selling for about almost $1,400 for the plate. It was estimated at $500 to $700, which I thought was very, very low, because we've seen them before. It's not a mystery. And if Stair prices them, estimates them at this range, it's just their way of selling. We're here to sell it. We're here to sell it. And it did sell. And then this did really well. Now this was another a very interesting plate. We talked about it. I think I talked about it in the Patreon. We do videos over on the Patreon side all the time. And I think I mentioned it there, and I might have mentioned it over here a week or two ago. This is a very standard looking Wan Li plate. Late Ming, you've all seen them before. It's not especially big. It's 14 inches. It is a charger, but not crazy big. But what it does have on it is the decoration in the middle, which is very unusual. It's figural scenes. You hardly ever see figural scenes on Wan Li dishes. You do see them occasionally. I'm not saying you don't, but the majority of the time you see birds, you see other animals, you see flowers. You don't often see people. And that's what I think sent the price on this up with the premium to hit almost over $3,000. And at $3,100 for this. And there aren't many occasions in the last few years where you see a Wan Li dish sell. Normally a plate this size with the standard decoration, 14 inches, these plates have been selling for between $400 and $600 recently, 5 to 7 maybe on a good day. The cobalt wasn't particularly strong, but it was nicely done. The colors were good, and it may be stronger in person because it may have been a little bit overlit in the photograph, but it is a very interesting scene with two people walking along. They look like farmers, and you have this nice pine tree in the background and so forth. But that was sort of a shock. I didn't think it would bring quite that. I knew it would do pretty well, but I didn't think it would bring that much. So that market seems pretty healthy. There's the back of it. And this is a good one. It's not covered with a lot of kiln grit and junk all over it. It's still very clean. And no, it is not a Japanese example. $2,400. And then hopping along over to this was something I was hoping to get. And it did fine in the end. It brought about $1,000. It was a very, very nice Japanese Amari basin. When it was posted originally, they put it up as Chinese Amari. And I did tell them that it was, I emailed the folks at Stair, because I think they do try to do a good job. And they just missed it. It's easy to miss this. This is the kind of thing that lots of people misidentify these as Chinese, or you have a Japanese one that they'll misidentify as Japanese, Chinese or Japanese. They go back and forth. This was clearly a Japanese example. It was very, very nicely done. It was in beautiful shape. And I told them, I said, it's an 18th century, early 18th century Japanese Amari dish from the Edo period. And it's very, very beautiful. It was really, really beautiful plate. And they had estimated it as a Chinese example as being worth $200 to $400, which was low. It was 16.5 inches in diameter. And it ended up doing just fine in the end. And it didn't get it, but we move on. We move on when we don't get things. But at any rate, I'm glad somebody paid a good price for it, because whoever the consignor is, they deserve to be paid well for that. All right. And then over to this. This was at the Raffaello Sona auction, a pair of Dutch export armorial platters. These were very nicely done. And Raphael had a pretty good sale. He had some bargains, though. If you're trying to trade trunk buyer, you got some good buys, because there was some very beautiful cedar examples, and in the wood, they only sold for $300 or $400 a piece. But you do have a shipping problem with those. But this was a very nice one, very unusual pattern, nice shape, and so forth. And they did well. They brought, with the premium, what's their commission? 28%. Look at that. They're almost 8.8% cheaper than Stair Gallery. That's quite a spread. They ended up selling for $2,200 plus the premium, or around, that was up to about $2,800 or $1,400 a plate, which I think is about right. I think that's a reasonable price. I thought the estimate was very modest, or it wasn't, certainly not intimidating based on what these are. And then they sold this really nice Anglo-Indian mahogany server. Now, there's another server in the sale that they didn't identify as Anglo-Indian, and I'm not quite sure why, because it was almost identical to this one, except that it was a little bit longer. I thought this one was prettier. I thought the wood selection was better on this one. The other one sold for $5,000, though, plus premium. This one sold for $3,000, but it was a full-size sideboard. It was a big one. But I thought this was a great little, like a dessert server. Beautiful wood color. Anglo-Indian, made for the English market, nicely done, and it ended up doing fine. It had a fairly modest estimate, 1,500 to 2,000, but again, an indicator that furniture is getting some traction. All right, that's what this means. And this was the first half of the 19th century server. This wasn't a late one. This was probably made between 1810 and 1830, 1800 and 1830, somewhere in there. But beautiful quality. And as I said, with the premium, it came in at just about $4,000 for that. And a few years ago, that would have been a shocker. All right, so again, furniture. Keep an eye on it. All right. The other thing that sold was this, Raphael. There's silver, right? They had some very nice Chinese silver and some Japanese silver in the sale. This was a good one. I like this box, a reticulated box. And I think it did fine. It ended up bringing about a little under $1,000 with the premium, but very nice quality. It needed a cleaning. Of course, Chinese silver, little silver foam. You don't want to polish it every time, just as a little tip. You can polish your silver once in a while, but if it's just light tarnish, use silver foam. Do not use polish every time because you're going to rub it down. Just use a little silver foam to take it off, and let the silver foam. Some of them have protective business in the cleaner itself, and if you put it on and you allow it to sit for a few minutes and then rinse it off with sort of tepid water, not hot water, tepid water, and dry it. It has some aspects to the silver foam that actually helps it, I've been told, to keep it from retarnishing so quickly. So a little tip there. But you don't want to use an aggressive polish every time on your silver, or all the details will eventually be burnished away. And then this was in the sale. This was actually a very good buy. This was in Raphael's sale. I thought this was a great buy, actually. This was an enormous platter, 17-inch Fitzhugh platter, circa 1800, 1810, maybe a little before, but very fine quality with these really nice spearhead borders, beautiful white ground porcelain. And there were two in this sale. One of them was a 16-inch that went for $350. This was a 17-inch and it went for $400, which kind of makes sense, but a very, very fine quality one and a big one. So this is something you could hang on a dining room wall. You could use it. If you buy these, use them. Put them out, put the turkey on them at Thanksgiving. Be elegant. 400 went for half the estimate. The estimate was $800 to $1,200. Went for $400 plus premium, or around, just a little over $500 for the plate. This was a great buy. These were very, very good buys. The Canton export market, I think, is still kind of soft, unless you come up with a really rare pattern or rare type of design, or having the family crest of somebody prominent, especially prominent in American history. They can bring a lot, as you all know. If they were members of the Orders of Cincinnati or something like that, then you're gonna pay a huge price to get them, or get a huge price if you sell them. All right, and then hopping along over to this. This is some stuff that's coming up. Somebody emailed me the other day and they said, you don't talk about sales in England much anymore. Well, they haven't had many. And they haven't had many that were specific in recent weeks, so I haven't been much to talk about. Then lo and behold, I was checking around, and Swarters has a sale coming up. And they've got some decent things, not a lot. This is over in Essex. This is sort of, I think, it looks like one of their summer clean-out sales. But if you're a Tibetan object buyer, you like portable shrines, there's some of these in here. And then they've got a bunch of textiles and carpets and things. One of the carpets, one of the bag faces they have in here, is they just identified it as an Afghan rug. This is an Asari shual, and it's a rather nice one. And I think it looks to be in very, very nice condition, made around somewhere between the late 1890s and 1910 maybe. But I don't think it's full of synthetic dyes. It looks like it's mostly vegetable dye, or all vegetable dye from what I can see. But notice the pile. There's no bare spots. It looks quite complete. And these are pretty big. This one is, let's see, 160 by 98 centimeters. So it's 3 feet in across, and over about 5 feet long. It's a good size one, and the estimate on it is peanuts. 100 to 200 pounds, 100 to 200 pounds. It's got one bid at 80. The sale is on the 12th in just a couple of days. It should bring 400 to 600. And then you got to deal with shipping, of course, but these are inexpensive to ship. So, they fold them up and put them in a box. There's nothing to them. They don't need any padding. They are the padding. All right. But this is a nice bag. So if you're looking for a nice shawl, this is a good one. This is a nice one. It's got nice border decoration, beautiful colors, and it looks like it's in good shape. All right, and then over here, they also have a couple of libation cups, Blanc de Chine. The one on the left looks to be a 19th century one, but the one on the right has that soft sort of yellowish slightly almost like vanilla ice cream color. And typically those are more 18th century. And they have very modest estimates on them. On the pair, just 100 to 200 pounds. They're fairly nice. These are pretty good. The one on the right I like a lot. I like that. I think that's probably worth 200 or 300 by itself. So right now it's got no bids at an 80-pound opener. And all these things will be on the global pages by tomorrow morning. We'll get them up. I usually get up early on Saturday and get that done. All right, now over here, this is another one that's in the sorted sale. This is a very nice 18th century familial rose, probably Yongchen period bowl and saucer and under tray. This is a nice one. Good colors. You've seen them before, but I love this light blue that they used and the very soft pink. The color values are all very, very similar, so it works really, really well. And I don't see any cracks or hairlines anywhere on it. And I think the estimate is extremely low, 100 to 200 pounds. 100 to 200 pounds. That's nothing for these, and they do it. This does appear to be fine. Oh, there we go. It's got the Yongchen. They even say it's Yongchen on the back. So why does it have such a low estimate? Don't know. I think that's just them saying we're going to sell it. I didn't see that before, but yeah, it's a Yongchen type. It's a well-known type from the Yongchen period. I'm not guessing. All right, and then over here, just as a reminder, this sale is coming up in just a few days on the 14th. This is the Skinner sale, their rug sale in Marlborough, Mass, or Bonhams. I'll call them Skinners forever. But this is that rug we talked about a few weeks ago because I just thought it was so spectacularly beautiful. A tree kazak with the colors, the ground colors on this are just stunning. And apparently a few people think so too. It's already with the buyer's premium, it's already well over its high estimate. And they weren't giving it a low ball estimate, I don't think. I'm not surprised. This is a striking carpet and it's big. It's good size, 6 by 10 feet. It was estimated at 5 to 7. It's already got 7 bids. It's up to 7,000. And let's see where this ends up. It could bring, if it's already there, it could, of course, it could, with 39 people watching it here, and more people probably on the bottom site itself directly, and then more people on Invaluable. So don't be surprised if this goes for 12 to 15 to 16,000, somewhere in there. It's a beautiful, beautiful carpet. And there are some other rugs on the sale too, so go check that out if you're looking for a rug. There's a lot of Chinese rugs on the sale as well. All right, and then over here, this is a piece that's coming up. Those of you that are watching this today on Sunday. This is who's the auction house? Affinity Auctions in Fresh Meadows, New York, is having a sale. This is a Kangxi molded relief dish. It has one watcher, me. Okay, I'm not going to bid on it, but this is a wonderful dish. It's about 6 inches in diameter. It's a very well-known type. Meissen actually copied these at one point. In the early sort of the mid 18th century, they were copying these. This is a Kangxi example. The picture's not terribly good, but it looks fine. Very, very nice. So check that out. If you can pick that up for $70, that's like the bargain of the week. But it has one bidder is this time right there. That's me. I don't know how that's possible. Affinity Auctions, Antique Auctions in Fresh Meadow, New York. Sale is on the 10th. They have that, and they have this. This is also has only 5 people watching it. This is a really rare black lotus ground decorated, probably Yongchen period teapot with pink lotus leaf wraps incised into the spout, beautiful finial, and the under tray. This is a really, really pretty pot. Exceptional example. And it looks like it's in very good condition. I don't see a lot of wear to the bottom here. It's absolutely an 18th century one. I don't see any reason. Look at it's got a molded relief decorated back on the saucer. This pot they're estimated at 800 to 900. I think that's low. I think it should probably bring 1,500 or so. It's a very unusual type and beautifully done, and the color palette is striking. And there's no doubt that the saucer goes with it. So if you're an 18th century porcelain buyer, you definitely want to look at that. And then over to this. This is the Leland Little sale. I'm just going to touch on a couple of lots here, finishing up, just to show you what they've got. There's this nice pair of 18th century Cloyson lacquer, boxes. They believe they're 18th century. They certainly look it to me. And there were some of these that turned up a few years ago. Wasn't it Christie's or somebody that had Sotheby's that had some of these? And they did very well. So we'll see how this one does. The estimate on it is as you know, they're very modest on their estimates. It's already up to $600. It's had several bids. It should bring in the thousands. All right, and then there's this very nice Japanese Arita koi dish. You've seen this pattern before, but not in this intense cobalt blue. You see it usually with a whiter background and then enamels. The pattern is well known, the koi pattern. But in these colors, these striking blues and contrasting whites, I think this is a very, very attractive piece of porcelain. It's a beautiful example. It's probably Meiji period from what I can see here. Um, let's flip through the pictures quickly. Yeah, Meiji period. But look at the back of it. Very elaborately done, nicely done all the way around. And how big is it? 17 3/4 inches. That's a good plate. That's a good big one. The starting price on it's 50. It should bring 5 to 600. So we'll see. We'll see. And then over to this, there's a nice Warring States amphora. I'm pointing this out because this isn't as big. It's 15 inches tall. It's got a great look to it, and so forth. And there's a bunch of chaires and the tea jars with their there's very lovely organic material lids, ivory lids. There we go. But these are nice if you're a teaware collector. You want to check those out. And this is the gangbuster in the sale. This thing is fantastic, and it has a very interesting history. In the past, we talked about these big Meiji period bronzes that were produced after the end of the Shogun era, when the Meiji emperor, banned the shogun, and they were no longer allowed to brandish their swords in public and carry on and so forth. The metalworkers who made their living by producing manuki and all the accoutrements that went with that were in demand by the 1.1 million samurai in Japan. It was an elite corps, but there were a lot of them, and they spent a lot of money on their outfits and on their helmets and their gear and their appliques and all this other stuff. They were suddenly all out of work. And many of them went back to farming and doing other things, but a core of them were encouraged by the Meiji emperor to take their great skills and talent at doing very, very fine metalwork and going into the decorative metal and bronze business. And this is one of these pieces. And then what they did was they took these great pieces and they sent them out to world exhibitions in Paris, in Chicago, and so forth around the world to share with the world the way exhibitions were done back then, the art of different cultures and countries around the world. And that's why they had the Japanese pavilion, they had the Chinese pavilion, they had the French pavilion, the English, the Swedes. Everybody had a pavilion where they could show off their artwork from their country. And this was in the Japanese pavilion in I believe it was the Chicago exhibition. So I recall the Chicago World's Columbian Exposition, 1893. It's been in the family ever since. All right, so this was something that was sent there to impress the Americans at that famous exposition. That was one of the biggest ones ever held in America, the Chicago one, in the late 19th century, to impress Americans with the skill of the Japanese bronze casters. And this thing is phenomenal. It is over 6 feet tall. Okay. If your shipping prices bother you, this is not the lot for you. But if you really want to own something phenomenal, this is for you. This is an amazing sculpture. It's absolutely amazing. Every part of it is superb. And we'll go through it in some detail when we do the next video, but that's a really, really great thing. Really, really great thing. And I don't know what the estimate is on it. I don't think I gave it one. It's up to $1,200, which is nothing. You haven't paid for the bird on top of it yet. It should bring $20,000 or $30,000, I would think, at least. This is an amazing piece of metalwork. It's the kind of thing museums should want. If you're a museum curator and you're looking at this, you better go to your members and try to get this. This is a great object. It's one of the best ones I've ever seen. It's absolutely superb. So check that out. We're going to do a video Monday or Tuesday on the wholesale because there's lots of other great Japanese things in there, and there are some good Chinese things as well. But this just knocked me out, and I wanted to talk about it. That's all. It's just a great thing. So there we are. All right, and that's sort of it for the week. We had a good time over on Patreon this week. Thank you. A number of you decided to join this week. That was fun. And as you know, I think we posted several videos. We shared a very interesting video in the Robert Forbes Museum, the China Trade Museum down in Milton, Mass. that we came across, and some articles and so forth, and then the regular look at my watch list each week, and some of the things that we found on there this week that I shared with the members over there. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're all having a great time. As you can see, I'm out in my yard this morning. You can't see it, but the ocean is just right over there, and keeping me company. The air smells good, and Buck was here a minute ago. He's gone in. I think he's gone in to take his nap. He's he gets lazy when the weather's good, which is fine. All right. So anyway, I hope you're all having a great summer. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll be back next week. Subscribe here if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Tell me about some sales that you've seen that are coming up you'd like me to mention, and on we go. All right. Bye bye, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.